He groped for the light, realized as he felt the rough walls that he had traveled back to 1944, to the prison hospital again. The candle in the hospital had gone out. Poor old Edgar Derby had fallen asleep in the cot next to Billy's. Billy was out of bed, groping along the wall, trying to find a way out because he had to take a leak so badly. I'm very good at going for bathroom breaks right when Billy in the story has to go to the bathroom, and I'm very impressed with myself. Thank you. Because he had to take a leak so badly. He suddenly found a door, which opened, let him reel out into the prison night. Billy was loony with time travel and morphine. He delivered himself to a barbed wire fence, which snagged him in a dozen places. Billy tried to back away from it, but the barbs wouldn't let go. So Billy did a silly little dance with the fence, taking a step this way, then that way, then returning to the beginning again. A Russian, himself out in the night to take a leak, saw Billy dancing from the other side of the fence. He came over to the curious scarecrow, tried to talk with it gently, asked it what country it was from. The scarecrow paid no attention, went on dancing. So the Russian undid the snags, one by one, and the scarecrow danced off into the night again, without a word of thanks. The Russian waved to him and called after him in Russian, "Goodbye." I don't know why this is here, but we're already on the next page, so. Goodbye. Billy took his pecker out, there in the prison night, and peed upon the ground. Then he put it away again, more or less, and contemplated a new problem. Where had he come from? And where should he go now? Somewhere in the night there were cries of grief. With nothing better to do, Billy shuffled in their direction. He wondered what tragedy so many had found to lament out of doors. Billy was approaching, without knowing it, the back of the latrine. It consisted of a one-rail fence with 12 buckets underneath it. The fence was sheltered on 3 sides by a screen of scrap lumber and flattened tin cans. The open side faced the black tar paper wall of the shed where the feast had taken place. Billy moved along this screen and reached a point where he could see a message freshly painted on the tar paper wall. The words were written in the same pink paint which had brightened the set for Cinderella. Billy's perceptions were so unreliable that he saw the words as hanging in the air, painted on a transparent curtain. Painted on a transparent curtain, perhaps. And there were lovely silver dots on the curtain, too. These were really nail heads holding the tar paper to the shed. Billy could not imagine how the curtain was supported in nothingness, and he supposed that the magic curtain and the theatrical grief were part of some religious ceremony he knew nothing about. Here is what the message said. Please leave this latrine as tidy as you found it. Billy looked inside the latrine. The wailing was coming from in there. The place was crammed with Americans who had taken their pants down. The welcome feast had made them as sick as volcanoes. The buckets were full or had been kicked over. An American near Billy wailed that he had excreted everything but his brains. Moments later, he said, "There they go, there they go." He meant his brains. Oh God, I could smell that page. And so they goes. There they goes. My brains. That was I. That was me. That was the author of this book. Billy reeled away from the vision of hell. He passed 3 Englishmen who were watching the excrement festival from a distance. They were catatonic with disgust. "Button your pants," said one as Billy went by. Sorry, how do I say that in a British accent? Button your pants. Button your pants. So Billy buttoned his pants. Oi, button your trousers. Okay, I said it with an American accent. It's so easy. So Billy buttoned his trousers. Or shit, do they mean pants? Is Billy even wearing trousers? So Billy buttoned his pants. I appreciated that, Emmerich. He came to the door of the little hospital by accident. He went through the door and found himself honeymooning again, going from the bathroom back to bed with his bride on Cape Ann. "I missed you," said Valencia. "I missed you," said Billy Pilgrim. Billy and Valencia went to sleep nestled like spoons. And Billy traveled back in time to the train ride he had taken in 1944. From maneuvers in South Carolina to his father's funeral in Ilium. He hadn't seen Europe or combat yet. This was still in the days of steam locomotives. Billy had to change trains a lot. All the trains were slow. The coaches stunk of coal smoke and rationed tobacco and rationed booze and the farts of people eating wartime food. The upholstery of the iron seats was bristly, and Billy couldn't sleep much. He got to sleep soundly when he was only 3 hours from Ilium. With his legs splayed toward the entrance of the busy dining car. The porter woke him up when the train reached Ilium. Billy staggered off with his duffel bag, and then he stood on the station platform next to the porter, trying to wake up. "Have a good nap, did you?" said the porter. "Yes," said Billy. "Man," said the porter, "you sure had a hard-on." "Thank you, sir. I had a great nap." "Thanks for noticing." At 3 a.m, on Billy's morphine night in prison, a new patient was carried into the hospital by 2 lusty Englishmen. He was tiny. He was Paul Lazaro, the polka-dotted car thief from Cicero, Illinois. He had been caught stealing cigarettes from under the pillow of an Englishman. The Englishman, half asleep, had broken Lazaro's right arm and knocked him unconscious. The Englishman who had done this was helping to carry Lazaro in now. He had fiery red hair and no eyebrows. He had been Cinderella's blue fairy godmother in the play. Now he supported half of Lazaro with one hand, while he closed the door behind himself with another. With the other. "Doesn't weigh as much as a chicken," he said. The Englishman with Lazaro's feet was the colonel who had given Billy his knockout shot. The blue fairy godmother was embarrassed. And angry, too. "If I'd known I was fighting a chicken," he said, "I wouldn't have fought so hard." The blue fairy godmother spoke frankly about how disgusting all the Americans were. "Weak, smelly, self-pitying, a pack of sniveling, dirty, thieving bastards," he said. "They're worse than the bleeding Russians." "They do seem a scruffy lot," the colonel agreed. A German major came in now. He considered the Englishmen close friends. He visited them nearly every day, played games with them, lectured them on German history, played their piano, gave them lessons in conversational German. He told them often that if it weren't for their civilized company, he would go mad. His English was splendid. Quick note, if you don't know about the Englishmen, I don't exactly remember all the details either, but basically these, sorry, why did I just clap like a fucking nuclear bomb into the microphone? Sorry. What's the deal with the Englishmen? They were captured in like the first week of the war or some shit like that. Like they've been captured in the first week of the war, and they were being sent supplies by like the fucking Red Cross in their prison camp, but through some clerical error, they were accidentally sent 5 or 50 times as much supplies as the Red Cross thought that they were supposed to get. So they literally these Englishmen have been here since like the war started in a prison camp, getting sent supplies by the Red Cross that are like 5 times more than they need. So they're like rich prisoners in a prison camp in the fucking Second World War. These Englishmen have literally not suffered a day at all. So that's why they're shitting on the Americans. They're like, what? We put together a play for them, and all of them started pooping their pants off. What weaklings. And there's a German major who's their friend. His English was splendid. He was apologetic about the Englishmen's having to put up with the American enlisted men. He promised them that they would not be inconvenienced for more than a day or two, that the Americans would soon be shipped to Dresden as contract labor. He had a monograph with him, published by the German Association of Prison Officials. It was a report on the behavior in Germany of American enlisted men as prisoners of war. It was written by a former American who had risen high in the German Ministry of Propaganda. His name was Howard W. Campbell Jr. Howard W. Campbell Jr. He would later hang himself while awaiting trial as a war criminal. So it goes. While the British colonel set Lazaro's broken arm and mixed plaster for the cast, the German major translated out loud passages from Howard W. Campbell Jr.'s monograph. Campbell had been a fairly known playwright at the time. His opening line was this one: "America is the wealthiest nation on earth, but its people are mainly poor. And poor Americans are urged to hate themselves." To quote the American humorist Ken Hubbard, "It ain't no disgrace to be poor, but it might as well be. It is in fact a crime for an American to be poor, even though America is a nation of poor. Every other nation has folk traditions of men who were poor but extremely wise and virtuous. Sorry, I'm literally not looking at the words as I read them. It ain't no disgrace to be poor, but it might as well be. It is in fact a crime for an American to be poor, even though America is a nation of poor. Every other nation has folk traditions of men who were poor, but extremely wise and virtuous, and therefore more estimable than anyone with power and gold. No such tales are told by the American poor. They mock themselves and glorify their betters. The meanest eating and drinking establishment, owned by a man who is himself poor, is very likely to have a sign on the wall asking this cruel question: if you're so smart, why ain't you rich? There will also be an American flag no larger than a child's hand, glued to a lollipop stick and flying from the cash register. The author of the monograph, a native of Schenectady, New York, was said by some to have the highest IQ of all war criminals who were made to face death by hanging. So it goes. Americans, like human beings everywhere, believe many things that are obviously untrue, the monograph went on. Their most destructive untruth is that it is very easy for any American to make money. They will not acknowledge how, in fact, hard money is to come by, and therefore those who have no money blame and blame and blame themselves. This inward blame has been a treasure for the rich and powerful, who have had to do less for their poor, publicly and privately, than any other ruling class since Napoleonic times. Many novelties have come from America. The most startling of these, a thing without precedent, is a mass of undignified poor. They do not love one another because they do not love themselves. Once this is understood, the disagreeable behavior of American enlisted men in German prisons ceases to be a mystery. Howard W. Campbell Jr. discussed the uniform of the American enlisted in World War II. Every other army in history, prosperous or not, has attempted to clothe even its lowliest soldiers so as to make them impressive to themselves and others as stylish experts in drinking and copulation and looting and sudden death. The American army, however, sends its enlisted men out to fight and die in a modified business suit, quite evidently made for another man. A sterilized, unpressed gift from a nose-holding charity which passes out clothing to drunks in the slums. When a dashingly clad officer addresses such a frumpishly dressed bum, he scolds him, as an officer in an army must. But the officer's contempt is not, as in the other armies, avuncular theatricality. It is a genuine expression of hatred for the poor, who have no one to blame for their misery but themselves. A prison administrator with captured American enlisted men for the first time should be warned. Expect no brotherly love, even between brothers. There will be no cohesion between the individuals. Each will be a sulky child who often wishes he were dead. Campbell told what the German experience with the captured American enlisted men had been. They were known everywhere to be the most self-pitying, least fraternal, and dirtiest of all prisoners of war, said Campbell. They were incapable of concerted action on their own behalf. They despised any leader from among their own number, refused to follow or even listen to him, on the grounds that he was no better than they were, that he should stop putting on airs, and so on. Billy Pilgrim went to sleep, woke up as a widower in his empty home in Ilium. Valencia died? I forgot that. I forgot Valencia was dead. No, Valencia, my heart, my flame. My totally okay wife. No. If I see her in the past, I shall tell her, hello. Okay, wait, where was I? Oh, Billy Pilgrim went to sleep, woke up as a widower in his empty home in Ilium. His daughter, Barbara, was reproaching him for writing ridiculous letters to the newspapers. Did you hear what I said? Barbara inquired. It was 1968 again. Of course. He had been dozing. If you're going to act like a child, maybe we'll just have to treat you like a child. This isn't what happens next, said Billy. We'll see what happens next. Big Barbara now embraced herself. It's cold in here. Is the heat on? The heat? The furnace, the thing in the basement, the thing that makes hot air come out of these registers, I don't think it's working. Maybe not. Aren't you cold? I hadn't noticed. Oh my God, you are a child. If we leave you alone here, you'll freeze to death. You'll starve to death. And so on. It was very exciting for her, taking his dignity away in the name of love. Barbara called the oil burner man, and she made Billy go to bed. Made him promise to stay under the electric blanket until the heat came on. She set the control of the blanket at the highest notch, which soon made Billy's bed hot enough to bake bread in it. When Barbara left, slamming the door behind her, Billy traveled in time to the zoo on Tralfamadore again. A mate had just been brought to him from Earth. She was Montana Wildhack, a motion picture star. Montana was under heavy sedation. Tralfamadorians wearing gas masks brought her in, put her on Billy's yellow lounge chair, withdrew through his airlock. The vast crowd outside was delighted. All attendance records for the zoo were broken. Everybody on the planet wanted to see the Earthling's mate. Montana was naked, and so was Billy, of course. He had a tremendous wang, incidentally. You never know who will get one. Now she fluttered her eyelids. Her lashes were like buggy whips. "Where am I?" she said. "Everything is all right," said Billy, gently. "Please don't be afraid." Montana had been unconscious during her trip from Earth. The Tralfamadorians hadn't talked to her, hadn't shown themselves to her. The last thing she remembered was sunning herself by a swimming pool in Palm Springs, California. Montana was only 20 years old. Around her neck was a silver chain with a heart-shaped locket dangling from it between her breasts. Now she turned her head to see the myriads of Tralfamadorians outside the dome. They were applauding her by opening and closing their green little hands quickly. Montana screamed and screamed. All the little green hands closed tight because Montana's terror was so unpleasant to see. The head zookeeper ordered a crane operator who was standing by to drop a navy blue canopy over the dome, thus simulating earthling night inside. Real night came to the zoo for only one earthling hour out of every 62. Billy switched on the floor lamp. The light from the single source threw a Baroque detailing of Montana. The light from a single source drew a Baroque detailing of Montana's body into sharp relief. Billy was reminded of the fantastic architecture in Dresden before it was bombed. In time, Montana came to love and trust Billy Pilgrim. He did not touch her until she made it clear that she wanted him to. After she had been on Tralfamador for what would have been an earthling week, she asked him shyly if he wouldn't sleep with her, which he did. It was heavenly. And Billy traveled in time from that delightful bed to a bed in 1968. It was his bed in Ilium, and the electric blanket was turned up high. He was drenched in sweat, remembered groggily that his daughter had put him to bed, and had told him to stay there until the oil burner was repaired. Somebody was knocking on his bedroom door. "Yes," said Billy. "Oil burner, man." "Yes?" "It's running good now. Heat's coming up." "Good." "Mouse ate through the wire from the thermostat." "I'll be darned." Billy sniffed. His hot bed smelled like a mushroom cellar. He had had a wet dream about Montana Wild Hack. On the morning after that wet dream, Billy decided to go back to work in his office in the shopping plaza. Business was booming as usual. His assistants were keeping up with it nicely. They were startled to see him. They had been told by his daughter that he might never practice again. But Billy went into the examining room briskly, asked that the first patient be sent in. So they sent him one. A 12-year-old boy who was accompanied by his widowed mother. They were strangers, new in town. Billy asked them a little about themselves, learned that the boy's father had been killed in Vietnam in the famous 5-day battle for Hill 875 near Dak To. So it goes. While he examined the boy's eyes, Billy told him matter-of-factly about his adventures on Tralfamadore, assured the fatherless boy that his father was very much alive still, in moments that the boy would see again and again. "Isn't that comforting?" Billy asked. And somewhere in there, the boy's mother went out and told the receptionist that Billy was evidently going crazy. Billy was taken home. His daughter asked him again, "Father, father, father, what are we going to do with you?" The end of chapter 5, finally, which was also quite long. Thank you, everybody. And God bless America. Sorry, my skirt was stuck on the chair. Holy mother of pearl. Anonymous. God damn, what a long chapter. Seriously, dude. I was like, I've already broken it into 3 parts. How long can the third be? And it was so goddamn long. Thank you for listening, and thank you for $200. It was so girthy and so long.